In today's video, we're going to be going through the new Tempestus Aquilons kill team and seeing how we think of those. So, introduction, they have Recon and Seek and Destroy. Probably my two favourite archetypes, right? So, cool, awesome, amazing. It's a 10-man team. There's not a lot of choice, there is a little bit of choice. So you have to take a Tempestor. He's got three, or she actually has three loadout options. You go for Hotshot Las Pistol and Power Weapon, Relic Bolt Pistol and Chainsword, or Las Carbine and Fists. The Las Carbine is right out. There's some argument to be said that you might want to go for the Bolt Pistol and the Chainsword, like I see people saying that. Personally, I think I'd always go for the Power Weapon. I tend to think that people saying that you'd go for the Bolt Pistol and the Chainsword are full of cope because there's an error on this kit that means that you technically don't have enough arms to build the Tempestor with the Hotshot Las Pistol and the Gunfighter, but I think a sober opinion and viewing of the rules is that you should go for the Las Pistol and Power Weapon on your Tempestor. So your remaining 9 slots as follows. I think you always take a Grenadier and a Gunfighter and a Precursor. There's maybe an option to drop some of those for troopers if you really want to think about it, but that would involve buying a second box, so I wouldn't bother. And then you've got your 3 troopers, which you have to take 3 troopers, so you take 3 troopers. Then you have got the gunner pool situation, but it's a bit of a weird one. You've got 4 operatives, of which you take 3. You've got a gunner with a melter, a gunner with a plasma, the Marksman, and the Servo-Sentry. We'll look at that when we get to it. It's quite interesting. So, their faction rule is drop insertion. Drop insertion is a little complicated, so drop insertion. When setting up a Tempestus Aquilon kill team before the battle, the first third of your kill team must be set up as normal. Each third thereafter can be set up above. Place them to one side instead of in the kill zone. For each third that's set up, you must set up the whole third in this way, not some of them, and then place one of your drop markers wholly within the drop zone. For each third that's set up above, you must set up the whole third this way. So, you have 10 models. Okay. How do you split 10 into thirds? Because 3 threes are 9 and then 1 spare. So I don't know, and if you've seen an FAQ or a definitive answer to this, then let me know. I don't know if you have to put your extra guy, like that 10th model, does he have to be in your first third, or can you choose to put him in the first third, your second third, or your third third? I just think that they knew they were writing the rule for a 10-man team, so they should have explained what you did with that. That annoys me, but there you go. So essentially, I think you're going to have 4 models deployed at the start of the game, and then 2 groups of 3 up above, so 6 models up above. The groups aren't actually relevant to anything, and it feels like they should be, but they're not, right? So, as a strategic gambit, in the first and second turning point, you can move your drop markers, so you have 2 drop markers, right? You can move your drop markers up to 4 inches, measuring the horizontal distance only. In close quarters, this can be measured and moved through walls. Very good, very nice. During the firefight phase, each friendly Tempestus Aquilon operatives set up above activated as normal. When you do, you can either expend or land the operative. If it lands, set it up in the kill zone in a location it can be placed as follows. Within 3 of one of your drop markers, measuring the horizontal distance only, or wholly within your drop zone. Not within control range of an enemy operative, except for the Precursor, who's like a knife-stabbing person, who can be set up within control range of an enemy operatives, with no part of its base underneath vantage terrain and with an order of your choice. So what you're going to have to do is you've got your 4 models on the board. Could be 3, don't know. Right? You've got 6 models off to one side. Don't think that your models are like mapped 3 models and 3 models to the 2 insertion markers. They're not. drop markers, sorry. They're not. You just have these 6 models off to one side. I would actually line the 6 models up next to the side of the board with their order triangles, so you can flip them. So because you can essentially, if you wanted to, in Turning Point 2, you could pass. I don't think it's a wise move, but you could pass. You know, you could use them to skip an activation. You could expend them, right? Which is interesting. So the operative is treated as performing the reposition action. You spend the AP not accordingly, and then you continue its activation as normal. It's obscured until the end of the next activation or the first turning point, whichever comes first. So that's really powerful as well. So on the turn it comes in, it's obscured. So you just dump it down into the open, it's obscured. Really good. Okay. So what you're essentially doing, you're quite fragile, these 8 wound models with a 4-up save. You're able to move them up with impunity via these 2 markers, right? So the markers move 4, and then you have to be within 3 of the marker. So your opponent has got to try quite hard not to position any of their models where you can then look at the board on your turn and go, right, cool, well, if I bring in my plasma gun there, I've got a shot on him. If I put my sniper in there, I've got a shot on him. I think this is going to be a very... if one player is playing this game, it's going to be a very technical game. There's going to have to be a lot of measuring the threat range around the markers, a lot of placing of, proxy miniatures, like stand-ins, to try and work out, well, can I be here? Is that safe? Is this safe? Is that safe? And I do worry that it could possibly bog the game down a little bit. Because... Your opponents, if they're good, and I usually end up playing against people that are actually better than me at these games, they're not just going to lie down and let you do your cool thing. That's one of the saddest things about Kill Team, right? You're like, cool, I'm going to drop in this melter guard, I'm going to have all these buffs, and I'm going to go bang, and I'm going to, and then there's been steam, and then, there's nothing they can do about it. But your opponent's going to be trying their hardest to not let you have that, to not let you do the thing that makes your team glorious. So you're doing a lot of the... You're almost doing a lot of the tactical thinking and positioning of the game, but without the models. And that makes it quite difficult, right? Because you haven't got the models there to look at the state of the board. I think this is one of those teams where if you're good with them, and especially if you run into somebody who isn't good at playing against them, you might thrash them, right? And it might feel really unfair. But I think at top level play, I feel like, especially if they're playing elites, so they got a small model count, I feel like the best players will be able to play keep away quite effectively. And then it's on you to try and, you've created that space. So does that mean that you can get the point, you have to be like, well, I'm not actually going to get to drop down and just murder your guys, but I've created that space, so does that mean that I can capitalise on, the primary objective? Does that mean I can capitalise on my tactical objectives? Really, really interesting theme. Now, the downside to this, less than half of your objectives can be set up above by the end of the first turning point. So if you have less than half of your operatives can be set up above by the end of your first turning point. So you have 10 operatives. You have, we're not sure, 3 or 4 that you have to have down in turn 1. If it's 4, that just means that in turning point 1 you have to bring a further 1 in from drop insertion. But it could be that you can start with as few as 3 on the board, in which case you have to bring in no less than half. I apologise. So you start with 3 or 4, right? If you start with 4 in your deployment zone, you need to bring in 2. If you start with 3 in your deployment zone, you need to bring in 3, right? But whichever way you cut it, you're going to only have... What it's saying is, when it says less than half your operatives, it means a maximum of 4 operatives can still be up above by the end of the first turning point, which would be a much clearer way of saying it. Now, they've said it this way to give them the freedom to increase the number of models on the team in the future, right? Okay, so when readying your operatives during the second and third turning points, remove one of your drop markers. This means operatives still set up above are incapacitated by the end of the second turning point, so you have to bring them all down by the end of turning point 2. Fine. Really, really interesting rule, but like I said, really quite cerebral, and I do worry about it slowing the game down a little bit. Grav shoot. This is another special rule. They have 2 faction rules. Grav shoot's really simple. So, grav shoot is just that whenever you're dropping, you ignore the vertical distance. Really simple, but quite powerful, actually. Yeah. Right, the strategy ploys. We'll start with eye above. Airborne servo skulls and spotter aircraft keep the Aquilons appraised of up-to-the-minute tactical data. Select one enemy operative. That operative and all other enemy operatives within 3 of it gain one of your detected tokens until the end of the turning point. Whenever an enemy operative with a detected token is shooting a friendly Tempestus Aquilon operative, you can re-roll one of your defense die. Is fighting or retaliating against a friendly Tempestus Aquilon operative, one of your blocks can be allocated to block 2 and resolve success instead of 1. This is pretty awesome. You know, you're going to want to use it as often as it's practical to do so, especially that combat debuff where you can just parry out two attacks at a time. That's really powerful. I like that a lot. Maintain momentum. Once the assault begins, the Aquilons sustain the pressure, keeping their enemies reeling and off balance. Whenever a friendly Tempestus Aquilon operative is shooting or fighting a ready enemy operative, its weapons have severe weapon rules. So, severe is really good, okay, but it is only when you're fighting against a ready operative. You know, there are some schools of thought that say, well, you know, if your opponent's letting you fight a ready operative, you're already winning. But equally, there are definitely times at the start, especially with this team, where, especially I can see at the start of turning point 2, it's like, well, I can bring down a guy there, and I'll bring him down, and I'll shoot this guy, and I have the initiative. So, because you know when you get the strategy ploys phase who has the initiative. So it's definitely, there are times when it's going to be the right thing to spend, but how often are you going to be allowed shots on ready enemy operatives? No. Sudden offensive. Tempestus Aquilons are skilled at dropping swiftly into combat and catching their enemies unaware. Count the number of friendly Tempestus Aquilon operatives that aren't incapacitated, then halve the result rounding up to give you X. Until the end of the activation, friendly Tempestus operative weapons have the balanced rule. If they're the first friendly operatives activated, this turning point equal to X. For example, if you have 5 operatives, the first 3 will benefit. Like, that's a lot of words for balanced, and balanced isn't bad, right? It just slightly annoys me that it's like, you have this hoop of having essentially the first half of your activations this turn have balance. It's not a bad ploy, right? You might well use it turning point 2, turning point 3. It just annoys me because of its verbiage. It's a very wordy card for the first half of your activations have balanced. Okay. Drop and secure. Priority tactical objectives must be secured to ensure victory is absolute. Select one marker. Whenever determining control of that marker, treat the APL stat of friendly Tempestus Aquilon operatives that contest it as 1 higher, as long as at least one friendly Tempestus Aquilon operative actually contests it. Whenever friendly Tempestus Aquilon operative is within 3 of that marker, add 1 to the attack stat of its melee weapons to a maximum of 4. The really nice thing here is that I'm going to suggest you take the confirm kill ploy, which allows you to drop markers down whenever you kill somebody. And then you could use drop and secure, not really because you're worried about not controlling that marker, but just because you can then get like extra attacks in melee off the back of your dead bodies, which is kind of cool. Although it is still a maximum of 4, so it's not going to help your melee combat monster. Drop and secure could also help win your games with the APL thing on the primaries and things like that. So yeah, a really good ploy to have. FireFight ploys. FireFight ploys was the hot drop. Aquilons are trained to drop into the thick of fighting, engaging a surprised enemy as they land. Use this firefight ploy after rolling attack dice for a friendly Tempestus Aquilon operative that landed during this activation. If the target is within 6, you can reroll any of your attack dice. Yeah, I mean, this is amazing. This is these are the moves in the team that you want to be pulling off, right? These are the things that you want your opponent to fear and be working hard to not let you get. So it's great that you have this so that when you actually get to go, right, oh cool, I can drop down and shoot a guy, you don't whiff. You've got a bit of insurance that you, having managed to pull off the cool thing, you're not the thing in a whiff, right? So this is for your melter gun, essentially. But other your plasma gun and stuff like that as well. Oh, good. Sleepy, I am sorry. Firefight ploy. Adjust coordinates. As the firefight flows and develops, so those Aquilons still descending adjust their trajectories in response. So use this firefight ploy when a firefight ploy when a friendly Tempestus Aquilon operative lands. You can set it up within 5 of one of your drop markers measuring horizontal distance only, taking precedence over the normal distance requirement. However, it can't dash, fight or shoot. So I think this is really situational because you're hoping to drop down and shoot somebody, fight somebody if you're the Precursor, do something. So really the only thing, because you can't move, because when you drop down you count as having done a reposition. So the only thing you can do is a mission action. So the only purpose for this adjust coordinates is if you're able to use it to just drop down and score a VP. And if it happens, because the way your Tac Ops or your critical Crit Ops have lined up, then great, it might be worth doing, but it's an extremely situational firefight play. Next is Tempestus Exemplars. The training and conditioning of the Tempestus Aquilons allows us to stay focused on their mission, even during the most ferocious firefights. Use this firefight ploy during a friendly Tempestus Aquilon operative's activation, excluding the Servo-Sentry, and any operative with an APL stat greater than 2, so spoilers, your leader has APL 3. During the activation, it can perform pickup marker and place marker for 1 less AP. So this is pretty cool because, again, I think you're probably going to take confirm kill most of the time. That's like the default pick for your Tac Op, and that involves the creation of markers, as well as the fact that some of the primaries involve markers as well, I think. Do they? Fact check me, someone. But either way, I think you want confirm kill, and this is pretty cool. However, if you're not taking a Tac Op that involves markers, and your primary doesn't involve markers, then it's a waste of space. And then we got Progenitor. As graduates of the Scholar Progenium, these warriors are not only conditioned to follow their orders with unquestioning precision, but are also driven by a zealous dedication to the Imperial cult that helps to shrug off pain and fear. Use this firefight ploy when a friendly Tempestus Aquilon operative, excluding the Servo-Sentry, is activated. It regains 2d3 lost wounds. And during that activation, you can ignore changes to its APL stat. I mean, the 2d3 heal for a CP is really good. Really good, and I really like it. So, Tempestor. So, APL 3. Now, she's getting an APL buff for being the boss. The rest of the team's APL 2. 6-inch move like the rest of the team. 4-up save like the rest of the team. 9 wounds. Now, you've got the choice of weapon. I would probably go for the Las Pistol and the power weapon. I see a lot of people, like I said, saying go for the bolt pistol and the chainsword. But I would rather have the lethal 5-up and the point of damage on the chainsword, I think, than the lethal 5-up and the point of damage on the bolt pistol. Just because the power weapon is more damage overall. It gets up to 4-6, which is useful damage numbers. But I can see the argument. I can see the argument for the people that want to go bolt pistol because, like, oh, well, the Tempestor does so much for you, maybe you don't want her in combat. And it's easier to build with the bolt pistol. Power swords are cool. Chainswords are also kind of cool. Like, I'm convincing myself now. I'm more convinced on Team Bolt Pistol than I was when I wrote the slides. Let me know in the comments, are you Team Power Sword or Team Bolt Pistol? Because it really is the same trade, isn't it? It's do you want the +1 crit and the lethal 5-up on the pistol, or do you want the +1 crit and the lethal 5-up on the melee weapon? Maybe I want the bolt pistol. Oh, but the fact that I've changed my mind in between making the slides and narrating the slides, it is a pretty close run thing, isn't it? Yeah. I have to think on that a little bit. Your leader's also your comms, spoilers. So, command for 1 AP, support, select one of the friendly Tempestus Aquilon operative, excluding Servo-Sentry, visible to within 6 of this operative. Until the end of that operative's next activation, you add 1 to its APL stat, which is pretty good. And then you've got Tempestus Veteran. Once per battle, you can either use a FireFight ploy for 0 CP, if this is the specified Tempestus operative, or the command reroll FireFight ploy for 0 CP, if this operative is the one rolling the dice, basically. This is quite good, although, like, if we go back and look at the ploys, you're unlikely to be using this to do a pickup action for 1 SAP. It could be. You're unlikely to be using this to do adjust coordinates for free. Or hot. Like, it's probably going to be Progenitor or the command reroll. But maybe I'm underselling her, and maybe the point of her is that you keep her in reserve and then you bring her in to capture objectives and be a comms. Don't know. I want it to be this cool damage piece of the power sword. Like, that's what my bones want her to be, but I think, like, maybe she's secretly just comms. That's like her main thing. And she'd just be skulking around with a bolt pistol. I don't know. If you could give your comms with a power sword, would you? Maybe I would, but yeah, you know. Let me know in the comments. Grenadier. I love Grenadiers. Grenadiers getting kind of codified into this one thing, like a kind of cookie cutter operative type. But I really enjoy them. I mean, they're less fun on a team that's hitting on 3s natively anyway, right? Because it's really funny when you have them on teams where they're natively hitting on 4s, but then they have this copy-pasted Grenadier rule, so the Grenadier is just like more accurate. But I will say, for all the things the Grenadiers have, they all have, like, you get crack grenades. Also, often it's like, here's a special grenade, right? Whether you got the diabolic bomb in the Bloodied, or the whatever it's called for the Gene Stealer cult fella. But the melter bomb here is the best in class of those kinds of weapons, because it's 5-3 dev 3 piercing 2. It's just like a rather good bomb. And yeah, it's range 3, but it's heavy reposition only, which dropping down from orbit counts as a reposition, guys. So you just, if somebody lets you and you go, oh, cool, you have strayed to within a few inches of my drop marker, I am going to come down and I'm going to punish you by landing 3 inches away from you and then tossing a melter bomb into your arms. Like, you probably, against a good opponent, you're probably not going to be allowed to do it. That's the thing. But it would be so freaking funny and cool even when you're able to do it. I feel like this team, like I've already said before, I'm repeating the point, it's like you don't know how these guys play, or it's your first game into them, oh well, and then you're just going to get mullered by having a guy just sort of appear from invulnerability land and then go, cool, here's a melter bomb, and you're like, wait, what? But yeah, good players will play around it annoyingly, but yes, I think that's pretty cool. Yeah. Gunfighter. And the Gunfighter's a weird piece. They keep trying to make Gunfighter a thing. Like, I like Grenadiers. I'm a bit less sold on this kind of pistolier archetype. So you got your hotshot lance pistols, 4 attack, strength 8, ceaseless and ready. It's not a bad gun. It's reasonable. Or you can do a salvo mode where you can shoot with 2. Shoot with this weapon against both targets. So you can go, against 2 different targets with the salvo mode. I think you rarely go for the salvo mode unless you're pretty sure that you... Bear in mind your hit goes down to a 4+, so I think you rarely go for the salvo mode. I think you spend your life camping on the focused mode most of the time, although you know, there could be a situation when you're in that turning point 3 where he's within 8 of 2 guys who are both on like 2 wounds each, where you might be glad that you have salvo mode. And then he also has this fun ability, Gunfight. So Gunfight, whenever an enemy operative within 8 of this operative shoots this operative, keep track of each attack dice that's discarded as a fail. After the action, before incapacitated operatives are removed, including this one if relevant, this operative can perform a free shoot action, change its order to engage to do so, but it can only target that enemy operative with its hotshot lance pistols focused, and you only roll a number of attack dice equal to your opponent's discarded attack dice, plus 1 to a maximum of 4. Which I think is just pretty funny. It's to get that kind of quick draw, high noon style cowboy film kind of thing going, right, where you've got 2 people who face each other down and they both shoot each other and they both fall down, you know. It's cool. I think against 7 and 8 wound teams, it's definitely going to make people think, oh, I don't want to shoot with an 8-inch bubble of this guy. I want to make sure I'm constantly trying to back out to 9 inches. It's pretty fun. But he's not super powerful, but he's pretty fun. Right, we're going to do 3 operatives at once. So we're going to do the Gunner, the Marksman, and the Servo-Sentry. Because these are in a pool, you can take 3 of these. So, decision time. The Gunners are Gunners are Gunners. They've got a Melter and a Plasma. Both great weapons. I think you always take the Melter gun. That's completely non-negotiable. So that's like nailed on. Right, then you've got your Plasma competing with your Marksman, competing with your Servo-Sentry. So, Aquilon Marksman. He is a bog standard sniper for this edition. So, he's hitting on 2s, 3/3 damage, Dev 3. He has regular ass heavy. Not heavy reposition only. So, that means if you drop him down onto Vantage, which you can do, you're going to have to be shooting with your mobile profile. Okay? Because it's not heavy brackets reposition only. And you come down having counted as doing a reposition action. Now, maybe you start him on the board. You have somewhere where you can get him on the board at the start of the turn, at the start of the game, right? Like a normal person. And then you don't worry about that. But it is notable that he's regular old heavy. But I like him because he has this sniper's vantage. So whenever he's on vantage terrain and is shooting an operative that has an engage order and is at least 2 inches lower than him, he has severe. So that's cool. I think you take the Marksman. I don't think you take the Marksman on into the dark because I think that sniper's vantage terrain is what's really helping you. I think on into the dark you go for the... Basically, I think you go Melter and Plasma in every game. I think you swap between the Sniper and the Sentry, depending on your kill zone. Because I don't think you definitely don't want this guy into the dark. I don't think, just because he's what pushes him over the edge for me is that Sniper's Vantage rule of being able to have severe on the mobile profile as well, for whatever it's worth, right? Yeah. Then we got the Servo-Sentry. So the Servo-Sentry is interesting. It's got a 3-up save and 10 wounds. So it's chunky boy. It's only got a 4-inch move. Now, it has turret, so it can perform 2 shoot actions in its activation, which is really quite good. It can have crack grenades. And it's got machine, which is... it can't do anything other than dash, fall back, reposition, and shoot. So it can't retaliate, assist in a fight, or use any weapons that aren't on its data card. But the reason I don't like it is because it's hitting on a 4. So you've got a crack grenade, but it's hitting on a 4. And that's sad. The drop from 3 to 4 is just kind of sad, right? And it's like, yeah, you can shoot twice, but statistically you're going to miss with one of those shots, right? Or you know, with half of those dice, to be clear, right? Which is, it's just not. I don't know. Like I say, I would flex between this guy and the Marksman. One thing, I haven't built this kit yet, but you know, you've got more choices to make. I don't know how magnetizable it is between the 3 weapon options on the Servo-Sentry. It looks like it should be reasonably easy to magnetize. But if you want to build it a certain way, I think you're going to go for the grenade launcher. Like, the grenade launcher is the obvious choice. I quite like the hotshot volley gun, right? Because having 5 dice is great, especially when you're hitting on 4s. But you're trading a lot for it. You're trading piercing down to piercing crits, and you're trading a point of damage off normal and critical. It's a lot to mortgage for the extra dice. The Flamer is interesting. The Flamer might genuinely have a lot of play on Into the Dark, because you'd be able to, if you'd be able to deploy him into a room via, like, because he can drop down just like all the others. So be able to deploy him into a room, and then he can sit in that room with his, I can double shoot with my Flamer. And you know what? The Flamer's hitting on 2s. And so that's 8 attack dice hitting on 2s, 3/3 damage, range 8 saturate, lethal 5 up as well Into the Dark. So the Flamer does definitely have a lot to interest me on Into the Dark, which is possibly the only time I would take the Servo-Sentry. Am I really advocating using the Flamer? Something of being able to shoot the Flamer twice makes the Flamer feel a lot better to me, because you're really going all in on the fact that you're hitting on 2s right at that point. I think. Hopefully that makes sense. So yeah, maybe I'm building the server. If I have to build it one way, maybe I'm building it with a Flamer. Realistically, if I built these, I would really try and magnetize them if it's at all possible. I've not looked. But maybe I'm building it with a Flamer, and I'm just saying, yeah, I'm going to use the Marksman on 2/3 of the maps, and then when we're on Into the Dark, I'll bring out my Flamer skull. There is something sufficiently grimdark about the fact that somebody died, so we mummified his head, and we stuck it in this turret, and this turret's just got a giant Flamer on the side. Yeah. The Precursor. Love the Precursor. The Precursor's just hilarious. So she's got this, don't forget, she's got this hidden special rule that she can drop down and be in combat, right? That's her thing. So no one else can drop straight into combat, but she can, right? And then she's got her Tempestus dagger. So 4 dice hitting on 3s, 3/4 lethal 5 up. Okay. But she's got veteran knife fighter, so whenever she's fighting, after resolving your first attack dice, you can immediately resolve another before your opponent. So what you hope to do, obviously, is drop on somebody's head, roll your 4 dice, get a 5 and a 6, or 2 5s and 2 6s, get 2 crits, right? And then you go cool, crit, and against another 8 woo model, they're just dead. And then with Dynamic, whenever the operative performs the fight or shoot action, you can immediately perform a free dash action afterwards. It can do so even if it performed the charge action during this activation, but can only use the remaining distance it had from that charge action to a maximum of 3. So if you what you want to do is you want to drop in somebody's face, stab them twice with your vicious little knife, right? And then dash behind some cover, and then because it's the turn you dropped in, you're obscured, you're in cover. Yeah, you might be up the board further than you'd like to be, but you've just absolutely gibbed somebody like a missile, which is amazing to me. But like, that's only really cool if again, it all comes down to the thing where I think this is one of those teams where, and I know I keep repeating it, but it bears repeating, I just get the sensation that if you're playing against a very highly skilled opponent, you're just not going to be allowed to have any fun. Like, the whole mechanic almost is, you've set your opponent an annoying puzzle of keeping away from these 2 markers, and you've got all kinds of really fun, awesome things that you can do if they fail at that. But it all comes down to the caliber of your opponent. So because I play a lot of games against Zimbad, I just know that he will, without even needing to measure, he will just uncannily go, oh well, there's obviously this is the threat radius around both of these tokens, and it'll just be like, I'm not going to get to do the cool thing because you're I don't think it super duper rewards skillful play on your part when you're playing this team. That's the thing. I think what it does is, if your opponent is not playing in a highly skilled manner, you're going to have a wonderful time, and it's going to be like skipping through the meadow made of blood and entrails. So many of these mods. You've got your melter gun, you've got your precursor, you've got the fellow with the melter mine. So many of these models just want to drop down from orbit and just give somebody a really bad day. I do think against Marines, even if you get that hot drop and you get that sort of bad day scenario for your opponent, you're still not likely to kill the Marine, are you? Because you're going to do, best case scenario, you're going to do 8, right? Then they're going to hit you, and then you're probably going to do 3, 11, and then they're going to hit you and you're going to die. And then if you get, or they're going to parry you, I mean, yeah. But you will still reduce the Marine to a lot less health than it wants to be on. So there's that, right? But you're not going to kill a Marine because you've got 4 dice. So even if you get 3 crits, you're not going to kill a Marine because they'll parry your other dice, right? So yeah, but you will significantly hurt them and then lose your miniature, right? This is the thing: you are trading. You are trading. It's you are trading for doing wounds, which is never a good feeling. Like, we want to be doing chip damage and then trading to get the kill. When you are basically trading into doing some wound, that's not a great feeling. But it could still be worth it if you cripple the Marine hard enough, I suppose. But against non-Marines, I think you have a wonderful time. Like, it's just that thing of if your opponent lets you. Trooper. So you're forced to take 3 troopers. The troopers are quite interesting. So they've got these 2 abilities that are mutually exclusive. So Rapid Insertion, Strategic Gambit. In the first strategy phase, each friendly Tempestus Aquilon trooper operative wholly within your drop zone can immediately perform a free reposition action, but must finish the action wholly within 3 of your drop zone. So you've got the scouting option to dash forwards for free on all the troopers that you start on the board. Right. Alternatively, you've got Swift Landing. When they land, you can set them up within 4 of one of your drop markers, measuring the horizontal distance only, taking precedence over the normal distance requirement. I feel like what you do is you take your 3 troopers and another model potential. Let me know if it's really clear to you that you can have 7 models in orbit and only 3 on the table. Let me know. I can see an argument for reading it either way. Do you have to start 3 or 4 miniatures on the table? I wish it didn't say the first third. Because when do you allocate the modulus? What's happening? But anyway, yes. I think you put these 3 in your deployment zone and then use that dash that you get on each of them at the start to put them somewhere really safe, so that they are kind of there and pot towards your home objective, do whatever you're going to do. At the end of the day, they're 3 guys with las guns. Their purpose really is just to have something on the board, to have some presence on the board, to not die while your cool shit comes in from orbit, right? Yeah. And also, I think by starting with these basic guys on the you're not, like, your opponent's not going to know what to do. You're not representing them with anything worth them going to kill, almost. So yeah, interesting one. Equipment. So Tempestus daggers, awarded to each warrior of the Militarum Tempestus upon the induction into the ranks. These weapons double as a symbol of regimental pride. Friendly Tempestus Scion operatives, excluding that Servo-Sentry, have the following melee weapons. So 3 attacks hitting on 4s, 3, 4. So what? You're effectively gaining a point of damage on both halves. Yeah. Worth having, I think, because A, it's a team-wide buff, and any equipment that's basically, here's a buff for every single model on your team, like, you have to argue quite strongly with me that if I'm not going to take it. But I think because of the aggressive nature of the team, because you are going to be more forwards than other kind of human 8-wound teams, you're going to end up with combats, even when you didn't particularly want them, and so having a slight buff to... having that buff is going to really help you out. Yeah. Combat stims. The use of Minotaurum-approved combat stimulants is standard practice amongst Tempestus Aquilons, who may have to remain alert and fighting for days at a time. You can ignore any changes to the move stat of friendly Tempestus Aquilon operatives from being injured. Yeah, I just take it. Like, I don't want an 8-wound team. It's like, oh, well, how much time are you going to spend being injured? But don't forget, like, you've got a heal as well. I don't know, like, yeah, it's a global buff, so honestly, I'd just take it. It's as simple as that. Drop Augury. Prior to the commencement of hostilities, the region has been subjected to thorough auger stands by orbiting warships or hovering servo skulls. The resultant intelligence is inloaded to the Tempestor's Slate Monitron. A lot of grimdark tech words in that paragraph, weren't there? Once during the battle, when a friendly Tempestus Aquilon operative that's set up above is activated, before expending or landing the operative, you can move one of your drop markers again. It can't be moved closer to your opponent's drop zone. I think this is pretty mandatory because, like I say, this gives you the one thing where you can have an expression of skill, and you're not just banking on your opponent wandering too close to one of your markers. You know, this is another thing to make that game harder for your opponent, is another way to think about it. It's another thing for them to have to, like, you're trying to wear them down mentally. You're trying to mentally fatigue them by making the puzzle of keeping away from your markers as difficult as possible. Because now it's like, oh, well, he could do this once per game thing and gets a full, like, move, like, across the horizontal plane with the board. So that's interesting. I think it is mandatory because it just improves the core ability of the team. And then you've got Remote Overseer, be it a high-flying observer aircraft or a specialist team of Lex Mechanicae, is that the word? Employing tactical auger banks, monitoring officers provide wider strategic insight as the firefight rages. Once during the battle, when rolling off the initiative, you can reroll your d6. And unlike other, like the Kazakin and other people that have things that can affect the initiative, this is the perfect one because you can see, oh well, he's rolled a 2 and I've rolled a 1, so it's definitely worth me getting my one use of this now because I've got great odds, right? Whereas, oh, he's rolled a 6 and I've rolled a 1, you know what, I won't bother. So you've got all the information. So I think all the equipment's pretty well mandatory. Now, you're such a flexible and mobile team, I don't think you need to take things like ladders and barricades. Like, I don't think that's where this team is going. I do think you're often going to be taking the extra equipment ploy, because I'm not sure, because your troopers, which is what's starting on the board, all have scout anyway, effectively. I don't think any of the strat ploys are mandatory for turning point 1. You could make the argument for giving yourself severe against ready operatives, I suppose. So yeah, quite often you're going to want to take an extra piece of equipment, and I like smokes just with this, just because they're already really, like, on the turn they drop in, they're getting obscured, and then being able to have further turns of obscured on top of that just seems really obnoxious. So I quite like smokes on them. Yeah. Tac Ops. You've got access to Confirm Kill, and I think you want to take Confirm Kill just because you've got a lot of things around. You've got a ploy to help you pick up the markers. You've got another ploy that makes you better in combat when you're near a marker. So we're going to go for Confirm Kill as the kind of default pick. So reveal the first time an enemy operative is incapacitated. Whenever an enemy operative is incapacitated before it's removed from the kill zone, place one of your Confirm Kill mission markers within its control range. At the end of each turning point after the first, if a friendly operative controls one of your Confirm Kill mission markers, that marker is not contested by enemy operatives and no enemy operatives are within that friendly operative's control range, you can remove the mission marker to score 1 VP or 2 VP if it was placed for an operative with a wound stat of 12 or above, which is a maximum of 2 VP per turning point. The nice thing about this is that you can start killing potentially on turning point 1, like so you can't score in the first turning point, but you can be putting down the markers. That said, I don't think Confirm Kill is the only choice. I think this team could do okay with Storm objectives, with Overrun, with Plant Beacons or Recover items. The only one that I don't like is Champion, because you're not killing 2 guys in a single activation with many of your models. So against non-Marine teams, I don't know how you score Champion. Against Marine teams, probably wouldn't take it. Although the concept of saying, oh yes, my melter gun is my champion, by the way, he's in orbit, just to make your opponent play super cagey for Turning Point 2 is funny. But yeah, I think I go for confirm kill. But let me know, maybe that's not the choice, and maybe you go for recover items instead, because you can, like, if there's one thing you can do, you can screen out areas of the board, so you just, yeah, okay, we can see my drop marker, you can see that it's coming from my recover item. Do you want to come and interfere with my recover item? Because then I will drop a melter bomb or a melter gun or something on your head. But if you don't come and interfere with my recover item, then I'll just send like my pistol dude down to pick up the item and skip back to my lines. Like, so maybe you go for a recover item. There's a lot, I think. I think all of these are very accessible for this team, to be perfectly honest. Really good suite of Tac Ops. The bad news is, if you want to play this team, you have to buy Hivestorm. You only need to buy one copy of Hivestorm. You're pleased to learn you can get the whole team from one box. But yes, they haven't got a separate release yet. It will probably come eventually. If you don't have Hivestorm, you probably don't want Hivestorm, and if you have Hivestorm already, then you've probably already got the team. But yes, if you've watched this video and you're like, wow, they sound really cool, I really want them, then you have to buy Hivestorm. But I think everybody should buy Hivestorm, and it's a miracle that it's still in stock. Hivestorm's a really good product, so buy. If you haven't bought Hivestorm already and you're watching this video, you should buy Hivestorm. I really like this team. I think I'm kind of enamored with them. I think they're really cool. I am worried that it's kind of a weird thing where, you know, they're going to be one of those teams that does really well until you play into somebody that just knows how to defeat them, and then it might end up feeling frustrating because you're like, oh, I'm not being allowed to do any of my cool shit. But I still like them. They're definitely on the list of, like, I want to do Plague Marines, I want to do these, I want to do Scouts, even though they're not very good, I want to do Scouts. Like, there's loads of teams that I kind of want to get done next year. Whether I will or not is a mystery, but there are loads of teams that I kind of want to do. So how do you split 10 things into thirds? Like, I wish it just told me what to do with that remaining model. Answers on a postcard or in the comments section. Also in the comments section, which gunner are you leaving behind? I think it's the robot, and then you bring him in for the sniper or into the dark, but maybe you think I'm wrong. What do you think? And that here endeth the lesson. So thank you to all of my members, subscribers, supporters. Thank you to... Now I've got to give a shout out. I've not put it on the slide because we have a top tier member, and it's Compendium Fan or something like that on the Discord. I noticed this the other day, and Lord only knows how long he's been there with his bright pink name, not getting his shout outs and not saying anything, which is a crying shame. It is indeed nice. I'm looking it up right now in the middle of recording. Compendium Lover. So Compendium Lover subscribed at the absolute highest tier, has a bright pink name. From the next video onwards, I will get his name on the slide like I'm supposed to. Yeah, but thank you for that, Compendium Lover. I appreciate you being subscribed at the Tabletop HQ tier. That's amazing. Alright guys, thank you. And thank you for your continued support, whether it's just by being in the Discord, being a subscriber. You know, it all helps. It all helps. Thank you so much. I'll try and see you again tomorrow with another rundown or some news or whatever we've got. Yeah, have a great one. Bye-bye. Bye-bye-bye. Bye-bye. 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 Bye. Where's the mouse? I need to stop.